mean, both of you did really hit it right out of the gate with projects that are kind of aimed at us masses. I mean, for you, Wendy, you did these Instagram art lessons, which started right after the stay-home orders, and I took them that very first week. I remember.
Your drawing was amazing, Neal.
Okay, now we know you've definitely lost your marbles. And Samin, you started this cooking and quarantine blog podcast, Home Cooking, and both of them are you hit it right away, but can you talk a little bit about that and a little bit about kind of creativity during quarantine? Because all of us are stressed and scared, and the last thing maybe a lot of us are thinking about drawing or cooking. We just want to survive. So you both did this. Do you think there are benefits to people kind of exercising our creative muscles at least once in a while when we're all frightened out of our minds?
I think it's actually, creativity is this kind of invisible fundamental building block in our lives. And if we're not feeling creative, it can really take a big piece of our sense of purpose in the world out. And so when it started, when Caroline, my wife, and I heard about that schools were being closed and that people were going to be staying at home, we were talking to my mom actually and saying what can we do? How can we help? And thank goodness for Mom. She's like, you know what? You can help the parents and the kids by doing some art lessons. And so we started the first day that the schools were closed, and we thought that we were going to be providing this, some structure and some help for parents to give the kids something to look forward to, have some fun, and basically babysit for half an hour. We didn't expect that this creative outlet would be a place for kids to process what they're going through in this time, which is a lot. Even if they don't know the specifics of it, they take all of the emotions that are going on in their households, in the world, not seeing their friends, not being at school. That's a lot going on for a little kid. And so drawing is this way, and I would say cooking too. I mean, any kind of tactile creative experience is a way that we can sit down and we can channel this stuff out, move it through our bodies, make some sense of it, and have some joy. So yeah, turned out to be more than we expected.
I was just going to say, I agree with all of that. I think you said exactly it, which is, for me, I'm a really cerebral person. I'm always drawn to process stuff in my head. And so cooking has always been a really important physical act that's available to me, because when I'm cooking, I'm so present and I'm using all of my senses. And, you're smelling and paying attention and making sure it's not burning, and how are you going to cut it? And for me, I'm lucky I get to go in the garden and see everything out there and smell it and pick it, and is it ripe? And that is really an antidote to all of the sitting at home and stewing and writing and thinking and watching what's happening on the internet and all that kind of stuff. So that's really important. But I would also say, in terms of can regular people be creative in the quarantine? I think absolutely. And I actually very strongly believe that constraint is a gift creatively. I think it's the gift to anybody who's ever tried to write a poem knows, it's all about smallness and tightness and beauty. And without sort of some structure around you, you don't know what to do, because you could do anything. And so in cooking, absolutely. In fact, the next book that Wendy and I are working on is all about constraint, and how typically in our regular pre-corona lives, the constraints on our daily cooking was usually our time. But now that we're home, there's time to put something in the oven to stew all day, or there's time to cook a pot of beans, and our constraints have shifted more to ingredients and stuff. But I think becoming familiar with that stuff just makes you stronger, as a cook, a better cook, and much more creative in the kitchen. So
I'm so glad you said that. I actually gave a lecture once called Creativity Under Constraint. And the basic thesis was that constraint is essential for creativity. That, if you give an architect and just a blank piece of paper and just say, draw a house, and you can even have a competition, but the houses all look so different and scattered. There's no way to assess one against another. But you say, okay, here are the 5, elements of the house that you have to include. And boy, you get so much more creative submissions in the process. And I could see that true with cooking or drawing or anything like that. I guess so for both of you, what do you deal with? Like, you're aiming these at the masses, Wendy, but you're doing this for people like me who like draw, and let's just say not the most gifted artists. So, you got people who basically suck at cooking or at drawing or something like that. What do you say to those people? Because first of all, it's kind of scary to draw or to cook if you've not done it before. But what's the selling point? Why would you say do something that you kind of suck at?
Well, for me, what I've always said in regards to cooking and what I think ultimately what we will come out of this time with is so much more skill, because the only way to develop your skill is to practice. And here we are all at home practicing all day, every day as cooks. And I am going to do my classic interruption of Wendy before she even speaks, because this is like an ongoing thing in our relationship. But I know a bunch of kids. I was actually really excited to tell you, Wendy, like every kid I know is name dropping you to me. They're like, they're like, well, I know that Samin knows Wendy, so that's kind of like I know Wendy. But it's amazing. You're like a big star in my circles and beyond. And
likewise, Samin.
Yeah. And one kid I know was like, okay, like if I draw every day for 2 years, I'm going to be better than Wendy. Like,
probably true.
Yeah.
Probably true.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm finding the practice, the constraints, absolutely true. It's been really heartening to hear from a lot of kids and a lot of parents too who are drawing. This class is called Draw Together, and it's aimed for kids between like 4 and 14, let's say, but like adults up to like 84 are taking it. So we get a lot of feedback from kids and from parents that before quarantine, a lot of kids were afraid to draw. Parents too, but they were afraid to make a mark on a page because the blank canvas is intimidating. It's intimidating for me, and it's my job. Like, it's a scary thing. And a lot of us learned very early on from somebody that we weren't quote unquote good at drawing. And really, there's no such thing as that. It's just about making marks on a page and having some joy doing that. And I feel like this space that's been created during this quarantine, the beautiful irony of it is that it's created a lot of freedom for people. That with just like a supportive voice for for cooking, that's Samin's voice coming and saying like, hey, just try this and try that. And, don't be afraid to mess something up, right? You can take some risks. And in drawing, it's the same thing. It's like, hey, this is just about, making a mark. There's no such thing as a bad drawing. The process is the fun thing. So a lot of kids and parents too, who have been afraid to draw, we're hearing are like, now super getting into it. So that's exciting. It's also a little intimidating because that kid will probably be better than me with practice in 2 years, and he'll put me out of a job. But that's okay.
I doubt that, Wendy, but I do, I think that there's definitely this, fear of not being good at something, and that's certainly part of it. But there's also like when you're doing something new and different, like it's unlike Samin when she cooks, which is her area of strength. But, the people who are watching your show and who haven't drawn and then they draw, like me, where I also tried to journal in the first couple of weeks. Both times when I drew and when I journaled, which are really outside of my comfort zone, I remember I cried afterwards. It was just this release. It was profoundly emotional to be doing something like that, which it just underscored that life is so different because I am not a drawer and I'm not a journalist. And here I am at 3 p.m. on a Monday doing those things.